Welcome, welcome, welcome to the SubHub podcast. I'm MK Sullivan.
And I'm Danny Moreno. And today we have no other than American sub ultra short trail superstar Taylor Stack, professional trail runner currently representing Brooks, based out of Salida, Colorado currently, but he's going to soon be out of Crested Butte, which is really exciting.
Yeah, we enjoyed our conversation with Taylor. If you guys don't know much about him, last year was kind of when he popped on the radar for Danny and I at the 2024 Broken Arrow where he was fourth place. But this year he had an outstanding season. He was fourth in the Golden Trail World Series final, third in the prologue there. He was 12th at the World Championships in the classic distance. He was third at Alpine Glacier, which was a Golden Trail World Series. He was the top American at Sierras and All with the 12th place finish, sixth at Broken Arrow this year in the 23K. And like he's also racing next weekend at the Pacific Trails UTMB race, so he's not even done yet.
Yeah, he's definitely our pick for male American short trail athlete of the year. We
Rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year, breakout year, trailblazer, etc. Just like a full, very comprehensive stacked year showing how versatile he is and that he's one to watch in the coming years as well. And just a little side tangent, that episode will be coming out at the end of this year, so be sure to subscribe, follow, and also if you're just enjoying the podcast, don't forget to leave us a rating. But a little bit more on Taylor Stack. In this episode, we talked to him about his background, how he got into trail running, which we thought was super cute. We talked about his training, who his new coach is, and we really dive into all the things that are Golden Trail World Series, like his experience, his perception of pros and cons, and also what's next for him.
Yes, so hopefully you guys enjoy this episode with Taylor Stack. Just a big, quick, never second shout out. Danny is currently not training, but she will be back soon. I have been getting in like 4 weeks of training before my surgery, and
Woo!
because I'm also breastfeeding, I'm having to like eat quite a bit in the pool now. Kind of a 180 from my experience with pregnancy itself. But I have been putting the C30 drink mix into my side of the pool water bottle. Berry flavor is my go-to, but I also like the citrus. And yeah, it's been really ramping up over here. Like I have to breastfeed before I leave for the pool. I swim for 60 to 70 minutes with my C30, and then I have to breastfeed after, and then I slam some P30 because I'm just going, going, going.
Dang, that is so impressive, MK, that you're swimming 60 to 70 minutes. Um, as someone who will soon be dabbling in some pool swimming myself, I gotta ask you, I swear Never Second tastes better when you're swimming. I don't know if it's like the environment of the pool smelling like chlorine and then you get like a nice splash of something.
Refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
nice
way easier for me to drink in the pool than it is
on the bike.
on the bike or like even running. And I don't
Yeah,
know, I think it's because honestly, you get a lot hotter than you think in the pool.
I think
Like
so.
sweating like a fool in there, even though you can't really tell.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to actually throw some ice cubes in there to get like that full refreshing effect while you're swimming. But I've also had that experience. So if somebody's out there also injured, about to go into surgery, post-surgery, or maybe you're just cross-training in the pool, be sure to check out Never Second and use our code SUBHUB25 for 25% off all of your orders. So you can use this code repeatedly. It's not a one-time code, y'all. So whenever you're in there, we hope it's just saved. You know, when you click a box and you've already been putting a code, that should be your goal. Every time you just click discount code and boop, SubHub25 comes up.
Love it. And Christmas is coming up, so if you're looking for like a little stocking filler for your trail running boyfriend or girlfriend or, even just your pals, if you haven't checked out our sticker pack collaboration with Wild Strides Paper Co. yet, those could be great little stocking fillers. We've got Sub Ultra Batty, we've got Less Than 26.2, I Love Uphill, all sorts of cute stuff. So make sure you go check that out at wildstridespaperco.com and use our code SUBHUB15 to get 15% off of those stickers.
Yes, and if you ever, you're listening to our podcast maybe on a run or a drive and you're having trouble remembering what all of our codes are, go over to the subhubpodcast.com and click on the header partners, and all of the codes are there. Or if you aren't already, subscribe to the Subhub headlines, and all of our codes are always listed at the top of each new newsletter that comes out at the beginning of the month, which we'll have another one coming out in a couple weeks. So yeah, be sure to use those codes. Hope you are as excited about this episode with Taylor Stack as much as MK and I enjoyed recording it with him. So here you go. Here's Mr. Taylor Stack. Hi, Taylor. Welcome to the SubHub podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
Of course, we are super, super excited to have you on. You've been on our list for a little while now, and so we're finally excited to bring you onto the podcast. As people heard in your bio, you've had an incredible year, but before we get into that, we're going to dive a little bit into your background first. So let's start with the basics. You probably have answered this question a ton of times, but how did you find running, and then how did you find trail running specifically?
Yeah, so I kind of come from a family of runners. So my mom, especially, and my dad, but more so my mom, kind of in recent years, has been super into running. And so, I mean, when I was like a young kid, I would go out on trail runs with my mom. And so, kind of, trail was really the first like introduction into running for me. When I was like super young, like, 9 years old, something like that. And then in middle school, I got into cross country. And then from there, I just got super into cross country and track. And so did that all through high school and college and stuff. And so my focus shifted from kind of trail to cross country track. And I was doing that for a long time. And then after college, I've just kind of gotten back. Trails have reignited my desire to train and compete. And just having a lot of fun with it. So yeah.
As a kid who started running in Arkansas on like the smallest, most dangerous shoulders of roads ever, I'm very jealous of your trail running start in the sport. Did your mom race at all, or was it just something that you guys did for fun together?
She definitely raced and still does race. So she does kind of smaller local races for the most part. I remember being a super young kid going out to like Imogene Pass Run in Colorado down in Telluride. So those are some of my like earliest memories of, cheering for my mom while she does that race. And then both my mom and dad, we have done kind of trail races, some ultra stuff, but pretty low key kind of local race vibes. But then like my mom still races a bunch every year, and she came out to Broken Arrow this year and did the 18K. So yeah, it's kind of a family activity for us, which is super fun.
That is super, super fun. It's been cool to see other athletes and their parents. Like I know Tabor's dad did, Tabor Hemming, her dad did the VK, and that's super cool that your mom did the 18K. It's awesome that you ended up loving the sport because I feel like it could go either way. You're like taking the kid to the race and you're like, oh, I want nothing to do with this. Do you remember the first moment you were kind of like in awe of the sport and you're like, maybe I will decide to pursue this later in life?
Yeah, I think from the first kind of few runs that I went on when I was like a super young kid, like for whatever reason, it just immediately kind of just like took me and I was super into it. And yeah, it's running is definitely one of those sports that like I think, so a lot of people hate it, but some people really love it for whatever reason. And I just have always really been drawn to it and I've loved it. Um, and yeah, I've just like always been super driven. I'm kind of a competitive person too. So it's always been an outlet to compete and, train and like set goals to chase those PRs or try to like win local races. And that's kind of how it all started for me.
And so you ended up at Western Colorado for undergrad, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm curious because I know we've talked about this on the pod before that Western Colorado has a trail team, but you competed in cross country and track. And I'm curious if you were also on the trail team or if that's even possible because if anybody who listens to the pod was on a cross country team in college, you know that it is a year-round endeavor. So what did that kind of look like for you?
Definitely. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I've gotten this question a lot since I've transitioned more into trail in recent years. But yeah, so I was on track and cross country. And so that's like cross country in the fall, indoor track in the winter, outdoor in the spring. And then I would hop into like occasional kind of low key trail races in the summer sometimes. But that was pretty much my full commitment. So I was not directly involved with the trail program at Western. But it's funny because now I'm like going to all the same races as all the Western Trail people. Um, so it is kind of interesting. A lot of people, when I tell them I went to Western, they kind of assume that I was part of the mountain sports and the trail program over there. But yeah, it was kind of surprisingly disconnected from one another. Like you would expect, maybe we would train together and stuff, but they were definitely two different focuses and two different communities. But it is super cool what Western, the mountain sports program over there, how they're getting so many young talents into the sport. And like you see that with people who have kind of emerged and now are like legit pros kind of on the scene in ultra scene and whatnot. So yeah, Western's a super great spot. I had a great experience there with track and cross country. And it's also a really amazing place to trail run. So
Yeah, and Josh Eberly is the coach out there. Yeah,
yeah.
big shout out to Josh for taking the helm with that because yeah, having interacted with the Western athletes a couple times because Adidas Terrex has like a partnership with them. I think it's super super cool too. To me, is it a club program versus a funded uh program through the college? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I believe so. I'm not exactly sure how the funding works, but it is club, I think. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. No, I love that they have that outlet for athletes who maybe didn't want to do cross country or track or whatever. Um, Speaking about your college experience, so you, like you said, you were one of the schools that was on full time. My school only did cross country and outdoor track. Um, with that being said, Taylor, you are an NCAA champion in the steeplechase, which is really cool. Just talk about that process, because yeah, when we found that nugget, we were like, holy cow, this is super impressive. Were you doing the steeplechase from freshman year? Was that a goal the entire time? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it was fun. I always wanted to do the steeplechase, and when I was being recruited by Western, the coach over there, Jen Michael, she was a steeplechaser herself, and so I remember even when I was like a senior in high school and I was talking to her, I was like, I want to run the steeple because I just think it's like the most unique and cool event on the track. Um, and I don't think it came like very naturally to me. Like I was pretty clunky going over the hurdles the first like couple years that I did it, but yeah, I worked at it over time and got my form dialed in. So that was definitely always one of my main events in outdoor track, especially along with 5K. So yeah, steeple's super fun. I loved it. I think it kind of adds like unique flavor. It like breaks it up. You have to break your rhythm. And you have to have a little bit of coordination. So it's definitely a different flavor to most other track events, and I really liked that.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably cover this a little bit more maybe in a couple of questions, but we've seen that steeplechasers or like people who ran steeplechase in college like are historically pretty good at trails and specifically like technical stuff, which I think you are very good at. People like Ida Nielsen, Grayson Murphy, yourself. I was a steeplechaser. Like just that coordination that you have to run so fast over those hurdles and especially the water pit, I think translates big time on the trails.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes a lot of sense too, because with the steeple, yeah, like you mentioned, you have to have some coordination. Like runners are not known for being the most like coordinated athletes all the time, but I think the steeple kind of forces you to have some of that as well. And I also think, like in the steeple, you can't just totally like lock in and stare at your feet and like lock into a pace and turn your brain off. Like you have to be looking up and, breaking your rhythm and hitting the barrier, hitting the water jump, and you like stop and go and slow down and stuff. And I think that's kind of similar to what we see in trail, where it's technical. You have to jump over rocks, you have to go around switchbacks and stuff like that. And so that component of being okay with breaking your rhythm and like having to keep your eyes up and stay engaged in that way, I think that allows people who are good at steeple to transition to trail really well. Um, when, you know, like there are a lot of super fit track runners out there who maybe transition to roads, but it's definitely a different thing when you have to break that rhythm. So yeah, I think it makes sense to me that steeplechasers would transition to trail pretty well.
Yeah.
Well, my husband and I were actually talking about this the other day because I also think that the steeplechase is just such a gritty event because you can't just like stick your nose in it and like, pace people that I think that's another reason that a lot of people do really well on the trails is you got to be gritty to just be able to go out for 2 hours on a really super technical trail and work as hard as you can and not like fall apart.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same, even
Definitely.
though it's only a 10-minute, or I guess for men, like less than 9-minute race.
So fast. When I saw your time, I was like, "Whoa, I can't fathom that. That is so fast going over barriers." And also energy allocation too, like you said, because I don't know, I've seen a lot of homies clip that last jump going into the water pit. Um, but yeah, I think that's super well articulated, Taylor, as to why that correlation most likely exists. Uh, Also for college, before we switch over or switch gears, it looks like you are now a conservation biologist. Did you choose Western for that reason to study that? Like, are they known for that subject, or was that something you came about? Like, when I rolled into college, I had no idea what I was going to study. So, just wondering if there was any pretense to that.
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the reasons that I chose Western for sure. It was running was like a really big part of that, but I also wanted to choose a program because I knew, in high school I kind of discovered or decided that I wanted to go into like wildlife conservation type work. And Western has a really great program for that. It's definitely a smaller school, but there's kind of a surprising amount of like great research opportunities at Western. And if you're like a highly motivated kid, like you kind of end up being a big fish in a small pond, and like you're able to kind of get some of those positions when they're maybe a little bit less competitive than at like a big D1 school. So I was able to, yeah, I did a lot of really cool research work during my undergrad. And there's a lot of just great outdoor natural resources around Gunnison too, and so it's a great opportunity for wildlife conservation type stuff. So I had a great experience on the academic side as well there.
Did you also do the same thing for your master's up in Fort Collins? Because you mentioned before we started that you have been living in Fort Collins for the last 3 years doing grad school.
Yep, that's what I did. I did a master's at Colorado State in wildlife conservation. Specifically, I was working on fish conservation genetics. So um, doing some research related to native cutthroat trout conservation in Colorado. And I loved it. It was great. And the program at CSU is like world class for conservation biology. So yeah, that was a great experience.
What's like a fun fact you learned about cutthroat trout in Colorado?
That's a good question. Yeah, so in Colorado, we're in the world of cutthroat trout conservation. We are very concerned about this specific subspecies, the greenback cutthroat trout. And a fun fact about them is that they were reduced to just one single population in a stream near Colorado Springs in the early 1900s. And so there's a lot of conservation work to restore that species, but they all come from one single population that was the only population keeping them from becoming extinct early on. So maybe that's a fun fact.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. And is it working?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, they're being successfully reintroduced into different areas around Colorado. It kind of remains to be seen because it was such a small remnant population that there's some kind of inbreeding stuff going on. So we'll see how they do over the long term, but they're kind of investigating strategies to bring more genetic diversity into that population. But so far, so good. It seems like things are working out, and I have hope that we can restore the species. So
Cool. Maybe we'll do another episode just focused on
yeah.
cutthroat trout. That's super interesting. Well, considering undergrad, grad school, it sounds like you have a full-time job at this point doing that. Do you have any goals of, doing part-time and running full-time, or, taking a break from that and doing full-time running at any point?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the tricky things I'm trying to decide about how I want to approach that right now. So I finished my master's and now I'm a research associate at CSU, which is actually kind of the perfect flexible part time. And I work remotely now. So I do a lot of data analysis and writing manuscripts and things like that. And so I'm trying to extend that as long as I can because it is the perfect situation for flexibility around training and travel and stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely, it's important to me that I continue this career that I've built in biology. And I think it's, for me, I get a lot of fulfillment out of having something else in my life other than running. Because I think it's just nice. I think it's nice to have like those two different, like a career and also running. And I think it like makes me better at both of them to have some kind of other intellectual outlet aside from just running. So I definitely want to um I want to keep pursuing running to the full extent and like it's going super well and it's one of the most fulfilling things in my life. But I really would like to figure out a way that I can also continue my career and balance that through some kind of part-time remote job situation. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for at this point.
I mean, it does seem to be working for you at the moment, and I think that's a very healthy balance to have.
Yeah. And
Definitely.
being someone that like just quit their job, I'm so thankful that I grinded it out for as long as I did. Because I was able to like personally, my own personal journey was like I was able to build out my resume. And so now whenever I do want to go back to that industry, it already exists. Whereas like now I'm like just focused on running, but that was all the way up until like age 32, 31 that I like fully switched. And I feel very grateful for that. And also just learning all the skills of having that full-time job I would have never learned as a full-time athlete. So just my own personal journey experience, I'm a fan of that. Um,
Definitely.
Speaking of sponsorships, MK.
Yeah, so Danny and I are like super stoked generally on what Brooks has been doing over the last year. I mean, they started over in Europe, and then it feels like they moved this same momentum over into the US of really kind of focusing on sub-ultra athletes, which not many other brands are very into. So we love it. How did you get connected with Brooks, and how did that partnership come about?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think it's so cool that Brooks invests so much in sub ultra because it does seem like sometimes in this sport, like ultra is like the only thing that brands care about. But I think there is like a really cool side of it. Like sub ultra shorter races are exciting in a way that ultras are not. Ultras are very cool and exciting in their own way, I think, but you don't quite get that same like dynamic like position shifting and like sprint finishes as much. And I think that's a really cool component. And so yeah, Brooks has invested a lot more so than other brands in that, and I think that's really cool. And for me, it started after Broken Arrow 2024. That was kind of the first like race that I did that has a lot of visibility. Because I've done like more low key local races, which I love doing that too. And then kind of randomly, my girlfriend Sydney and I decided to go out to Broken Arrow. And we both had really good races. And it was like, whoa, this is like, there's like a whole scene here that I didn't even really know about. And so my buddy Mika Baudouin Rousseau, that was when I kind of first hung out with him, and he's with Brooks as well, and he connected me, and that's kind of how the connection started. And both Sydney Peterson, my girlfriend, and I both ended up getting Brooks contracts for 2025, which was awesome, and we're stoked for that opportunity. So
Cool. Yeah, that's also when you definitely caught our attention. We saw in a couple other results, but that fourth at Broken Arrow, we had to remind ourselves because Patrick Canego and Philemon Kiriago came over 2 years ago, and I was like, wait, was that a Golden Trail World Series event? Because those are two of the best sub ultra runners in the world, and you and Eli were, full on box matching with them, which was super, super cool to, witness and seeing the results afterwards. But yeah, totally agree. That was a huge result. How did you find navigating the sponsorship progress as a new athlete in the sport? Because like it's changed so much from when I first started and then MK's entrance. And so did you find it easy? Did you work with an agent? Like how was that?
yeah, I have not worked with an agent at all, so I've done all my communication just on my own, and also through like talking to sponsored athletes and like asking about their experience. Also, Andy Wacker and the trail team kind of took my girlfriend and I under his wing that first year, and definitely learned a lot through him about kind of how the process works. Um, yeah, it was interesting. I've considered, like I see the advantages of an agent, but then there's also the part where you have to like pay them a cut, and it's like, so are they going to be able to negotiate a proportionally higher contract than you would be able to on your own? I think it depends on the situation. So, but I think, yeah, I mean, I just kind of decided to try and learn it by doing, and just like send out those emails and like get on Zoom calls and chat with people and try to talk to as many people as possible to learn how it all works and stuff. And it's worked out pretty well so far. So yeah, that's been my experience.
Big shout out to Andy Wacker. Danny and I like to think that we've created some amount of like hype around Sub Ultra, but Andy has like single-handedly done the work of, bringing all these college kids into the fold. And I love to hear that he helped you in Sydney as well with that.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm super grateful for him and his involvement with that process early on. And just as like someone who like could explain like what even is Golden Trail Series. I don't even know what that is, coming out of college and like just
Yeah.
getting into the scene. So, and like pointing like, oh, these are kind of the races that you should do. These are the ones that brands are looking at, like all that stuff. Yeah, and I think, it's really, there's so many like young talented NCAA or college runners, who like have a lot of potential to just come and like crush in the on the trail scene. And so I think it's really cool that he's trying to create a pipeline for that. Yeah, because it's cool to see that kind of talent, the next generation coming into the scene.
Yeah, and I think that's also just like, if you know any college athletes who are interested in trail, or you're listening and you're a college athlete interested in trail, Broken Arrow is an incredible place to get your start. That's where I also kind of got my big break, I would say. And so if you're running fast times on the roads, on the track, like go ahead and apply for Broken Arrow in the next, I think it usually opens in December, because he has Brendan Madigan has a spot on his like elite athlete intake form that's like, what have you run in the 5K? What have you run in the 10K? Knowing full well that there are plenty of college athletes out there who just haven't had the opportunity to run on a trail race, but have the talent to come out and do well at these races.
Yeah,
Totally.
definitely
Yeah.
agree. Yes,
Yeah. Broken
yes.
Arrow's awesome.
We're like, yes, across the board. I think maybe that was my big break too, was Broken Arrow, like way, way back. Um, just speaking of Broken Arrow, so obviously you had huge fourth place in 2024, had another incredible sixth place this year. People might hear at face value fourth to sixth, but you improved by minutes, lots of minutes, maybe like 5 or 6. I would need to look back at it, but lots of minutes. Just kind of shifting gears to training, coaching, all of that. Like, how has your training evolved from in the last year alone, going into that first big race and then this year, obviously incredible results across the entire Golden Trail World Series schedule?
Yeah, definitely. So 2024, I was not working with any coach, so I was kind of writing all my own training. And I think it worked pretty well. I had some good results, some not quite as good results, and I think I was feeling pretty fatigued at the end of the season. So I decided to reach out to David Roach, as a coach for this year, and so I've been working with him, and that's been really awesome. And I think my performance has totally elevated from last year to this year. And I think a lot of that is a factor of just like increasing my volume a bit. Um, and also, yeah, I mean, so certain things about my training have definitely changed. So this year, I've focused kind of like surprisingly, I'm like running all these super verdy, technical, gnarly courses. But my training in terms of workouts has kind of gone back to the basics with just doing track workouts and just like speed development in that way. So doing things like 800 or 400 repeats on the track. So like same type of stuff that you would do as like a college 5K, 10K runner, which is interesting. But definitely I think one of the big differences is my like normal easy runs. I've made them longer, and I'm doing longer long runs and packing in my vert on those easy days. And my overall training volume has increased like 10 to 15% from last year to this year, and so I think that's a big part of the performance jump that I've made. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like when I was coaching myself, I was like, okay, these races, running like super steep uphill, super steep downhill, a lot of vert, like those are the types of workouts that I need to be doing to like run fast on that terrain. Um, and that makes a lot of intuitive sense, but for whatever reason this year I've found a lot of success with just like doing flat speed stuff. And it's kind of made me realize like, yeah, you do have to be able to run well on like difficult terrain, but like fitness is fitness. And I think like if you have that like technical ability already, like that's something that you can gain by doing easy runs or like doing some stuff on like training on technical terrain. But like if you have that, like it really just comes down to fitness and speed development at the end of the day. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you feel that like technical terrain just kind of comes naturally to you, but I also imagine it could possibly be just like running economy thing. Like the more efficient you are, over flat, the more efficient you can be with your footwork, like on technical terrain. But yeah, do you feel like that just comes naturally to you? Because I mean, you did well at Austria, which looked
Incredibly well.
incredibly, yeah, technical.
That looked wild.
thanks. Yeah, that was a pretty epic race for sure. Yeah, I think technical and like difficult conditions have always come pretty naturally to me. Like since I was a little kid, I was like climbing 14ers in Colorado and like spending a lot of time on the trails and stuff. And not that like you can't be good if you don't have that background, but I think for me, it's always just been like something that I love and is fun. And so I think it does come natural to me. I also think, yeah, like I kind of mentioned, like difficult conditions, like super muddy, cold, gnarly, rainy stuff. In college and cross country, whenever we had races like that, I would like overperform compared to people who are like better than me. So I think that's how Austria was. It was cold, like snowing up high, rainy, super muddy, super gnarly. And that kind of worked out pretty well for me. So I was able to kind of pop off under those conditions. But I do think that, like regardless of whether technical comes naturally to you, like the fitter you are, you're going to feel better at the top of the climb. And so you're going to just have more energy and you're going to be like more alert. And that's going to help you on technical downhills. So I think like with that in mind, like fitness matters, even though, like maybe it is your technical ability, but it's also your level of fatigue on a technical downhill that affects how aggressive you're going to be able to be, or how, efficient or fast you're going to be able to attack that terrain. So yeah, I mean, it's a combination, I think, of technical ability and fitness. And like what you lack in one, you can kind of make up for with the other, but fitness is king, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Health and fitness,
Yeah.
the big two things. And yeah, I feel that when I was your age, I went through a similar understanding of that physiology as well, because I was kind of okay at technical running. But to your point, I started doing track and I was like, oh, now I can move my feet a lot faster over the technical terrain. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, as we saw with you at Sunapee Scramble, like those conditions looked horrendous and it seemed very much like you thrived. So yeah, we couldn't agree. Before we dive a little bit more into this massive 2025 season that you've had, speaking of training, sounds like you're doing some long runs. I just have to ask, what rod are you carrying? Because I saw one of your Instagram reels of you fishing during a run. Are you, yeah, tell me what you're carrying.
Oh yeah, that's just my 5 weight fly rod.
Nice.
Yeah, Salida, the area just has so many awesome, beautiful alpine lakes. And so one of the fun things I like to do on like my Sunday, like kind of longer but like fun adventure run, is like run with my rod up to a cool lake, and you get like 4,000 vert, and it's like gnarly. But it's just a fun day, and you stop and fish for a while at the lake, and then come back down. So yeah, super fun. I love that type of stuff, and I'm a biology nerd, so like that's always been a really fun thing for me. And you can hike up there, but it takes like 7 hours round trip. So you might as well just run if you can and make it
Yeah.
a more efficient journey.
You're speaking Danny's language right now.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Her and her husband do stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, he'll pick like a super high, hard to get to lake, and he's like, I'm gonna go scramble and then fish and then scramble down. So when I saw that reel, it got me really giddy just looking at it.
Yeah,
Uh, so that's super cool. It sounds like David Roche injected a new amount of volume for you. Obviously, we saw that very much represented in the results, these track workouts, etc., longer, easy runs. Just to name a couple of the results, since at this point you would have heard the intro a little bit ago. This year, overall, Taylor got fourth at the Golden Trail World Series final. So there's a prologue and a final. He was third in the prologue, fourth in the final, 12th at the World Championships in the Classic, third at Golden Trail Alpine Glacier, and sixth at Broken Arrow 23K. Did I get those all correct?
yep,
Um,
I think so.
just absolutely massive year. I hope you are just still beaming from it. First off, Golden Trail, like you said, you didn't know what it was, you learned what it was. How was it balancing that and Worlds? Because those to me, like three incredible results all at the very end of the year. Was that the plan to like make sure you're peaking at the correct time, etc.?
Definitely, yeah. So those were Worlds and Golden Trail, like overall, and then the final were kind of the biggest goals, like starting off the year. So it was like targeting Sunapee Scramble to get that world qualification spot, and then planning out a Golden Trail season to get enough points to make the top 30 and go to the final. So yeah, everything was kind of building up to try and peak for those races. And yeah, I'm so stoked with how the season ended up, and to like finish it off with a great result at Golden Trail final is just kind of a cherry on top of an already really awesome season. So yeah.
So you said at the end of last year you were pretty fatigued and you ended up getting a coach. Obviously, you feel like that's helped. But were there, because this year was pretty jam-packed too, with like trying to qualify for both and racing both the final and Golden Trail, which I think were only like two or three weekends apart. Um, were there any like big lessons that you learned this year that you'll carry into future seasons or even from last year's like fatigue at the end?
Definitely. I've tried to figure out like how to explain the difference. Like obviously this year, the late season, I was feeling really good and had good results compared to last year. One different thing that I've done this year is taking one fully off day per week. So I only run 6 days a week, and then I have one completely off day. And I think just physically and mentally, like that just reduces the burnout factor for me, and it gives me like something to just look forward to, and like help with rest, help with adaptation, and you can still pack really quality training into 6 days. And so that's kind of like, I mean, I guess some people are doing that, especially at like BYU and stuff like that. But that's definitely kind of an unconventional approach, and like something that if I were just coaching myself, like maybe I wouldn't trust that it's the right move. But having a coach to like say like, no, this is what we're doing, and I just like buy in and trust that. And yeah, the 6 day a week thing, I'm really loving it. I think that's helped reduce my burnout. And I also think like taking longer training blocks in between races. So like this year, the way that it kind of worked out with the schedule is that I would race like either back to back weekends or like 2 weeks apart. And then I would have like a month and a half or 2 month training block in between. And like compared to last year where I was racing like every 3 weeks pretty much. And so I would like taper, race, recover, try to like squeeze some workouts in before the next taper, before the next race. And then it just kind of like accumulated this fatigue over the season where like yeah, I think having like longer breaks in between my races, and racing the same number of times, that means like racing back to back weekends, but it's only like one taper and one recovery period for those two races if they're close together. So I think that's definitely worked better for me. And yeah, I've learned, this year I think the season was structured a lot better, and that's going to help me learn and be able to do it better in years to come too. So
Yeah, it's been super interesting because I've been around the block for a little while now at this point. But like watching Golden Trail come onto the scene, originally it was a lot of marathon type distances, and then over the years it's evolved into more of these like just under 2 hours sometimes for the guys to 2.5 hour, 3 hour races. And how they've started to do just that to actually help with travel, because that was a big thing that came up with athletes when they're like, what's working, what's not? It's like, well, if I'm coming from Colorado, coming to Germany, and then having a race in Spain 3 weeks later when I have a job is really difficult. And so it's really cool to hear that athletes like yourself who are just starting to get in the space, it's like, I actually thrive off of that because I've never heard it so eloquently of like, it's one taper, you go hard for 2 weeks, you get a break. Probably at that point, you come home, you're like working in the office and stuff like that. So yeah, that's just like, sorry, I'm just reiterating what you're saying, but it's just super cool to hear that series have caught on to that. Athletes can do that if they do it correctly. Otherwise, they are going to burn out. Um, Long-winded way to say Golden Trail World Series. Why did you pick that series? And from an athlete who's like currently in it, what do you think the pros and the cons are of the series?
definitely. Yeah, I think as like a sub ultra shorter distance trail person who doesn't quite want to go up to like 50K plus yet, it's definitely like the biggest kind of most visible scene, with a lot of media, and it's like really fun, super competitive. It's like the venue for you to compete against the best runners in the world at that discipline. And so I think that's one big draw to it. I also really just think it's super fun. Like the courses they choose are really fun and they suit me really well. The travel is super fun. I mean, like that's kind of one of the motivations for me to like, you know, pursue this on a professional level and get a contract is like the opportunity to travel the world and see these places. Like I've been to 6 countries this year, and like that would not be feasible otherwise. Or like kind of Golden Trail and like Brooks having that contract has like given me that opportunity, to just like have that experience. And I think that's something that I'll value for the rest of my life, and be grateful that I took that opportunity. So those are definitely pros. I've had a lot of fun with it. Kind of the same thing can also be a con though, because I think that if you're gonna really seriously go target Golden Trail as a series and try to make the final and stuff, because of how spread across the world they are, like it requires a lot of travel, and that can be kind of difficult because like you're basically, if you're doing 3 races minimum to get enough points to qualify for the final, it's at least one international trip, probably 2 international trips, depending on where the races are and what the schedule is. And that's super prohibitive for non pros who like don't have the travel budget to get that done. I think, so that's kind of the double edged sword. Like it's really fun, all of the travel, but I think like I don't know how they could do it, but it would be cool if there was a way that like it could be more accessible for some of the people who don't quite have the financial means or the travel budget to make that happen, because there are a lot of people that I can think of who would be so good and like could go qualify for the final and get top 10 probably, but they just like don't have the budget to travel and like score enough points in the series. So yeah, that's what I would say, kind of pros and cons.
Yeah. So my next question was going to be, does Golden Trail still offer like support for top 10 athletes at like, because when Danny and I were doing it, if you finished in the top 10, then you got some amount of money to like go to the next event, which did help. I mean, you still need more money than they could probably have offered even at that point, but it did help a lot if you were either on a small contract or not a professional athlete. Do they still do that, or is it kind of just like up to sponsors at this point?
Yeah, they do it. So I actually would need to go back and check the exact details, but they have like, based on how you finish in the final ranking, then you get a certain level of support for next season to travel to races. So I'm pretty sure if,
So it's not race by race, it's like the end of the year gives you support for next year. So you still have to figure out how to get there to begin with.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
which
I
that
know
makes
that,
sense. Sorry.
yeah, No, that's okay. I know that they do have that like end of the season ranking system for support for the following year. I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything about really
Race by
race by
race.
race
Yeah.
support. Um, but I mean, it's cool that they do that, and like they're spending a lot of money to put this stuff on and like give support to the athletes and housing and food for the elites at all these events, which is really cool. Um, but yeah, I can see how it'd be difficult, when it's like this year there was only one race in the US. And so it's like to get 3 races, you're required to do at least 2 international trips. And for, people who are on, like you mentioned, like a super small contract or have a full-time job or whatever, like that's just not super feasible. And then they can't even achieve the ranking this year that's required to get the support next year. So it kind of
Exactly. Yeah.
like you have to have some kind of starting point to begin with or spend a bunch of money up front to try and like get yourself plugged in. So yeah, that's kind of the tricky thing about it. The
Yeah.
requirement to spend a bunch of money and do all this travel, which is just not feasible for a lot of people who would otherwise be able to do really well in the series.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's like I grapple with empathy on both sides because like I don't know if you remember this MK, but I feel like 2021, 22, they were offering it per race and an athlete would show up for one race like and be a big name and like do all this media and then they'd like change their mind about the season. So I could see as Golden Trail, it's like, well, we want to invest in the athletes that are committed to the series through and through. So yeah, that's so, so hard. Well, hopefully this next year, I don't know what the schedule is going to be. You might have some insight. Don't feel like you have to share it at this point, but having 2 races in the US is huge for American athletes, of course. They're still lacking stuff in South America, and Australia, etc. But yeah, that would help, like you said, a lot of those athletes. Super cool. I guess last question on Golden Trail. Do you think the amount of races right now is sustainable for athletes?
That's a good question. I think this year it was you score points off of your top 3, which is pretty sustainable, I think, for the most part. I'm not sure. I've heard whispers that it might be like 4 next year. And that just becomes maybe a little bit less sustainable physically and requiring that much travel. I think that's just like takes a toll on the body. Um, and I think in general with sub ultra racing, like we just see like for me what I think is that people just race way too much and like you see performance suffer because of that. And it's like coming from a track background, it's like if I ran a 5K, like I would feel like I needed like weeks before I was ready to race again. And like these races take way more out of your body than even like a track 5K. Like it's like 2 hours on like really gnarly technical terrain that just trashes your legs and your body. Um, and so I think, yeah, for me, like I love racing and it's like a trade off between trying to like pack in as many quality races as I can in the season, but also keep enough time to train in between to like make sure that they are quality and I'm not overextending my body. And I think a lot of people do overextend because there's incentives for that and like visibility and prize money and points in different series and whatnot. But yeah, that's kind of one of the tricky things about the sport. I like to try and be a little more conservative with my body to keep it sustainable.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point that you make that if you raced a 5K in college, you needed a break. And I think that's like the downfall of this sport generally is because ultra is so big and people are like, yeah, I run 300 miles, 100 milers a year. They look at races like Sierra Zinal or Kobe or Zagama, like anything less than a 50K, and they're like, well, you can do that all the time because that's a short race. That's not short. Like minimum, you're racing for, an hour and 50 minutes. And for a 5K, you're on the track for 13 to 14. Like
Right.
it's so crazy that we have gotten to this point where we're like, oh, well, a 28K, that's pretty short race. It's like, no, it's not. My family gets mad when my husband and I say things like, "Oh, well, it's only a half marathon." They're like, "Stop that. That's insane. 13
Yeah.
miles is a long race."
And you don't see like professional road runners running, road half marathons on back to back weeks. Like that's not a
No.
thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I mean, I personally thought that 3 was doable when like Danny and I were doing the series, and I think you actually saw quite a bit of fall off from our generation at least, when they moved it to 4 races because so
Yeah.
many of us also race other series, whether because most brands are quite interested in UTMB turns out. And so it's like trying to fit in 4 races and also a UTMB qualifier and a UTMB race. It's like,
And if it's a world
Yeah.
champs year, like
yeah.
world champs qualifier, world champs, it's quite a lot. I feel like we will shift gears in just a second, Taylor, but it's great to hear
No
someone
worries.
who's like in the series. Um, I feel like they were about to do 4 last year before
They
Austria
did
or
4 last
Poland.
year.
But Poland, remember, got
Oh,
canceled.
changed it.
And
Yeah.
so they're like, oh, we'll go back to 3. And then they probably did this year because of
Just
world
because of
champs.
Worlds. Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet they'll go back to 4 next year.
Yeah. It's super
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard. But yeah, I mean, on a world champs year, it's like there were some people who did like 3 Golden Trail races to qualify for the final, and OCC, and short trail at Worlds and Golden Trail final. And that's just like there's no way that my body could handle that type of schedule, I don't think.
It's
Like
also
that's just
like,
way too much.
yeah, it's also, I think people don't think about how emotionally exhausting racing is. Like, we just don't give enough credit to that. And when you're always putting like big efforts into these like races, like at some point your emotions are just gonna be like, I'm actually not into this anymore.
Yeah, they're going to
Yeah.
manifest physically,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. Well, Taylor, thanks for chatting the chit chat about Golden Trail World Series. Let's go back to more focus on you. 2025, Taylor Stack, incredible year. What is freaking next? Like, how are you revving up the engine to get excited for next year? I mean, if I had a year like that, I'm like, I'm pretty good. I could probably stop now. But I know you're probably hungry. You're young, you're strong, you're coming up. Actually, before you dive into it, a specific question. Roads, do those interest you at all? Olympic trials, etc., now that that window's open?
Yeah, definitely. Coming from the track background and stuff, like I get that dopamine rush from the idea of a PR. So I definitely am interested in trying to run like a fast road marathon, road half at some point. I've like, yeah, like there is part of me that's like, man, I could probably PR in the 5K if I like put in a track block here. But then it just like it gets tough because how does that fit into an already like super packed trail schedule and stuff? But yeah, I think this winter a road half. I've been thinking that could be on the table, and then it would be cool to put in try to get a Olympic trials qualifying marathon during this window. Need to think about specifically how it's going to fit into the schedule, but I do think I have that in me, and that's like something that would be really cool. And I would value that as a highlight of my career. So yeah, I think I will try to do something like that.
I can tell you that the year that I did really well at Golden Trail, I did a random 5K block in like February because racing was still kind of like weird at that point. And I PR'd after like 7 years away from the track. So you can definitely do it and it will help. But yeah, at this point, trail season's like all year round. So it's like, do I have time for that? Or
Yeah, definitely. It would be super fun. And yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to like kind of shift the mental game to something different for a little bit and kind of breaks it up. Um, so yeah, we'll see. I have one more trail race this year, and then I'm gonna reset and kind of figure out how I want to schedule next year. But yeah,
where are
those
you going
types of
this year?
things. I'm going next weekend actually to Pacific Trails UTMB
Oh,
50K. Yeah.
Oh,
sick.
you're gonna crush that for sure.
Hopefully,
Uh,
we'll see. 50K is kind of uncharted territory for me, but I
that'll be a
think I
fast one
should
though,
be ready for it.
time-wise. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. That's a great question. So, is OCC part of the plan for next year to try? Yep.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why I wanted to do this one at the end of the year. I was kind of wishing that I hopped in one earlier in the year to get the qualifier out of the way, but I'm still feeling good and ready to go. So yeah, I think I want to at least give myself the option to run OCC next year because it's not a world champs year. And so adding something else other than Golden Trail would be cool. And yeah, I want to give it a go, see how I can do out there.
Yeah, so Golden Trail and OCC and maybe CIM.
Yeah, because
Uh,
yeah, that's still CIM next year is in the window as well, right? Yeah,
yeah, because next year's 2026 and the trials aren't until 2028. So
yeah,
you got tons of time if you decide to not do it next year too. And I think CIM is always the last date anyways, so if you did it in 2027, it would be eligible more than likely.
yeah, yeah. That could be a good one. I've definitely, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking is maybe like next winter would be a good time to shift and try to get that OTQ in the marathon. But
Yeah,
it's a long
CIM
ways
and
out,
Houston are like right in that window and they're both great options.
definitely.
Dang. Well,
Yeah,
that
a lot of
is,
people ran super fast at Houston this past year.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
Oh, and Marathon Project. I wonder if they're going to do that every year through the trials.
Yeah. That's always the week after CAM or something like
I think
that.
it's 2 weeks after. It's like the weekend before Christmas or something this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, see what people run this year and then decide what's the better option. That's cool. Um, well, that's really exciting. Golden Trail and OCC next year. MK and I are very excited to see what their 2026, oh man, the years are rolling. 2026 Golden Trail will deliver for us. Hopefully, it'd be cool to have Broken Arrow again. I thought that was a great decision. But selfishly also want Mammoth. That was cool. Anything else as far as thank yous? What are some of your favorite Brooks shoes, etc.?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll throw out a big thank you to David Roach this year. I mentioned him earlier, but yeah, I mean it like has so much going on and so many athletes and such a busy schedule, and he like took a chance on me this year, and it's worked out super well. And I just want to like put out a huge thank you to him. He's awesome. Um, and then yeah, Brooks shoes are kind of changing and evolving, and there's a lot of good stuff going on. So yeah, I mean, I think for super technical Golden Trail kind of races on the shorter end, they have the Catamount Agile, which is like it's almost like a cross country flat with like gnarly trail lugs on it. And so that's what I wore at pretty much all of the Golden Trail races this year. Besides Broken Arrow, I wore the normal Catamounts there. But yeah, the Agiles are sweet. And then they have the new Cascadia Elites, which are like kind of the higher stack, super shoe, carbon plated. That's what like Chris Myers, who got second at Western States, he wore those. So those are pretty sweet. And I think, yeah, like that, I might even like for a non-technical Golden Trail race like Sierras and All or something, I think I might like shift more towards that. Kind of higher stack, carbon plated super shoe type thing. But yeah, I mean the shoe lineup's great, and like the road shoes are really nice for training. Um, the new Cascadia 19s are really awesome for trail. It's like kind of pretty nicely cushioned. The lugs are great. They're really good on technical, good on scrambly stuff. So yeah, I'm lucky with Brooks. Like the shoe lineup is pretty awesome. Like just such a well established brand, and they do a lot of stuff right. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like we're gonna have to have you on as like a co-host for a Golden Trail race that you're not gonna do. Because yeah,
Yeah,
this has been fun and it was nice to just chat with you about the series itself as well.
for sure. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. It's super fun. I love the pod, so
Oh, thanks.
it's an honor.
We are honored as well. Well, thanks again, Taylor. This has been the Sub Hub Podcast.